back to Drunk on Writing and the latest episode of the Tarantino Dissection. It's brought to you in part through the patronage of Ariya Norinth. Today, in this special dissection excerpt, we're taking a closer look at Pulp Fiction's first true chapter, Vincent Vega and Marsellus Wallace's wife, as well as a few interesting thematic connections that span the film. Now, we know exactly when this chapter begins because we cut to a title, as well as briefly forward in time, though we don't know it at first, enamored as we are by Bruce Willis's angsty confusion and Ving Rhames' soothing voice. Though we soon see Jules and Vincent's new, I guess we can call them outfits. And well, there's a big old mystery here, isn't there? And though the scene almost feels out of place, it's extremely crucial, setting up the dynamic between Marsellus and Butch, Vincent and Butch. Butch, it's worth noting, is the one who keyed Vincent's car, according to Tarantino. And more importantly for the moment, Marsellus and Vincent, who seem very buddy-buddy. I suppose you'd need to be if you're asking someone to take your wife out on a date-not-date. I mean, Marsellus goes to get Vincent breakfast later on in the film, so they're obviously on pretty good terms. That is, unless you go down the rabbit hole, that is the theory Marsellus thinks Vincent is a complete screwball and intentionally set him up, but I really think that's a stretch. But here, we dive a bit further into Vincent. We see him purchase his madman heroin, see him use said heroin to the tune of the Centurion's Bullwinkle Part 2 in a very natural-born killer sort of way. Travolta, apparently, never used heroin before, so he hooked up with a recovering addict Tarantino knew, who told him, if he wanted to know what it was like, to get plastered on tequila and lie down in a hot pool, which sounds lovely, but also apparently is only a touch of what heroin is really like. Wow, I mean, I don't know what else to say to that. Travolta and his late wife, Kelly Preston, apparently tried out the advice, so with the tequila and the hot pool. I bet that was a pretty fun night. I bet that was a fun night. By the way, I don't want to gloss over Lance, but he's not all that important, is he? I mean, you can look at him as something of a stand-in for a dipshit American husband, the Al Bundy of Tarantino's universe, if you will. And he did help save Mia's life, but given his monologue about getting wrong directions was cut from the final film, there's not that much to him besides the dudeness of his character. And Rosanna Arquette's Jodie and Brana Gallagher's Trudy are even less important, though they do get some fun, rather memorable lines.
That was fucking trippy.
So let's move on to Mia because, I mean, Mia. She's the heart and soul of this film, if there is one. And though much of her and Vincent's interactions are driven by the soundtrack, particularly Dusty Springfield's Son of a Preacher Man in their opening scene. Is Vincent the son of a preacher man? And Chuck Berry's You Never Can Tell during the twist competition. And it's almost odd, though in keeping with Tarantino, that we see Mia's feet before her face. I wonder if that would have still been the case if the cut scene of her interviewing Vincent had stayed in. But there's a beautiful romanticism here, isn't there? It's like a meet cute and totally a date, even without the cut get-to-know-you conversation they have about Amsterdam. Such is the magic of Jack Rabbit Slims, I suppose. The wax museum with a pulse, as Vincent put it. Though, you gotta remember, he's probably still pretty high when they get there, or at least coming down, so coming into this set with its neon, its rollerblades, its characters, would be a lot to take in. Side note, we could, at one point or another, see Ed Sullivan, who I always thought was Richard Nixon. And that's what happens when you don't watch old TV, I suppose. Ricky Nelson, Zorro, Marilyn Monroe, Mamie Van Doren, and Buddy Holly, played by Reservoir Dogs alum Steve Buscemi, who had to refuse the role of Jimmy due to scheduling conflicts. Now, there's a lot of fun touches in this scene, like the way the $5 milkshake is ordered. Martin and Lewis, or Amos and Andy, basically double vanilla or double chocolate. The way Mia's failed Fox Force 5 pilot teases Tarantino and Uma Thurman's later collaboration on Kill Bill, plus the whole follow-up to the Tony Rocky horror tale with the perfect summation from Mia.
When you little scamps get together, you're worse than a sewing circle.
And of course, that nod to Travolta's former life as a dancing superstar, even though the dance number was completely copied from the 1963 film 8½. There is a reference to Saturday Night Fever, but it's not the dance. It's Mia telling Vincent, "I knew that you could," something of a catchphrase from the older film.
Dig it, I knew that you could.
All this is fantastic, as is the cinematography and editing here, which changes, evolves as we follow their growing intimacy, a technique mirrored in the diner later. But I noticed something this last time watching Pulp Fiction that I hadn't before. Mia's seemingly throwaway comment after she returns from her bathroom bump and grind that, "Don't you just love it when you come back from the bathroom to find your food waiting for you?" It's a cute line, slightly overshadowed by cocaine use, but it also works as a thematic introduction to Vincent's bathroom issue, because it basically boils down to you get what's coming to you, and every time Vincent goes to the bathroom, which is an odd thing to say about a film, given bathroom breaks are generally not included in cinema, except, ones for the audience. But here, it happens rather frequently, doesn't it? Probably for Vincent due to his cocaine/heroin use. And every time he goes to the bathroom, something horrible awaits him. We see this first shortly after Jackrabbit Slims, after he and Mia head back to her place, where he literally has to talk himself off the ledge of wanting to be with her. He certainly doesn't want to be another Tony Rocky horror, only to find her ODing in the other room to urge Overkill's cover of Girl, You'll Be a Woman Soon, which reached number 59 on Billboard as a single after this. The power of good filmmaking. The curse next struck at Butch's, which obviously didn't go well for Vincent, and though we could give a special nod to him ruining Jimmy's hand towel, finally at the diner, when he comes back only to find Pumpkin and Honey Bunny robbing the place. Backing up a second, getting away from the bathroom issues, what do you think would have happened if Mia hadn't OD'd? Would the two of them have hooked up? Would they have left feeling as connected as they were following this gut-wrenching exchange? Would she have told him her ketchup joke? Me, I rather like their connection. I like them, certainly more so than I like her with Marsellus, given his soullessness and the fact we never even see them speak to each other. And I like to think Vincent going crazy to save her, crashing his car into Lance's home. I mean, did you see the way he just sailed into it? I mean, he demolished the place and the car, which is a long way from him being upset about it getting keyed earlier in the day. I like to think this reaction was less cover my ass and more I don't want her to be hurt. It's hard to say, really, but interestingly, the whole OD fiasco brings up another thematic connection across the film. Death, or the prospect of it, forcing characters to hide out, to seek refuge, and find a way to fix it. Here, obviously, with the OD forcing Vincent and Mia to Lance's. Next up, with Butch killing the other boxer and trying to stick it out in the motel before blowing town. And finally, Jules and Vincent heading to Jimmy's after, a different sort of bump and grind. Vincent's car, by the way, is that same 1964 Chevy Malibu that Tarantino bought after Natural Born Killers was optioned. And it was actually stolen during Pulp Fiction's production and wouldn't turn up until 2013, 19 years later, when a sheriff spotted a couple guys stripping the completely restored car, which had a false VIN. Who knows, maybe we'll see it in another film at some point, maybe that Vega Brothers spinoff. Do you think I think Mia's the heart of this film because she ends up getting stabbed in the heart with a needle the size of my forearm? That was fucking trippy is right. Did you know that shot was filmed in reverse? Which is partially why we never see the needle dig in. Though we do hear it. And I think that might be worse. It certainly helped make this a scene that stuck with me over the years, though it could also be because of, well, all the great little details. Lance's countdown, that close-up drip off the needle, the close-up of the mark, Mia's shock and awe when she comes up. I mean, it's a tense, wild ride of a scene that, almost thankfully, gives way to the briefest of denouements before we oh so poignantly fade out on Travolta blowing his kiss. Which, honestly, despite what Pulp Fiction throws at him later, is exactly how I like to remember his character. And a pitch-perfect end to this chapter. This has been a Drunk on Writing dissection excerpt exploring Pulp Fiction's first chapter, Vincent Vega and Marsellus Wallace's wife. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to check out the other excerpts or the full Pulp Fiction dissection. And if you'd like more episodes like these, be sure to head on over to drunkonwriting.com where you can get more episodes more often. Until next time, cheers. Thank you. keep on riding.